Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing some Monarch test hands. I'm really excited for this one because this deck is a really fun deck to be able to play around with, and you get some really amazing plays in this deck where you can actually just totally shut down your opponent. It's a really fun deck to play around with, and I'm really excited to actually show you guys what this deck can do because we just got some new support in Lightning Overdrive, which is really cool. We pretty much got an Upstart Goblin for the entire deck that you can play at 3. That's really amazing. It is a once per turn, and we got a new monster that actually helps us out with tribute summoning, which is really nice. It helps with the consistency of this deck a lot more than a lot of people are giving it credit for. This is a deck I would totally take to a locals or even a regionals level at this point to be able to kind of surprise them, especially with the way that I've built this deck. It's really amazing, and it's really fun and can surprise a lot of people. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon and other description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name searched for every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting requested deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. So without further ado guys, let's get straight on into this. So like I said, this deck is very consistent. It's like they just keep giving us consistency cards for Monarchs. And Monarchs are a really interesting deck because it can totally shut down your opponent from like their entire extra deck or even special summoning at all to basically turn it back into old school Yu-Gi-Oh, which is kind of neat. I really like the way this deck actually plays, and it's actually relatively budget. Like, it's not a super expensive deck. You can pick up the deck for less than like 50 bucks, which is what's really cool because it was actually printed in like a structure deck, and so it's very easy to pick the build up. And a lot of the cards that were printed in this deck were printed also as commons in other sets, except for like your Erebus and your Ether. But other than that, you have pretty much everything else is printed as a common, which is kind of neat. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do. Oh, and Pantheism wasn't reprinted, so we don't have that one, but we have everything else. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can actually do with some test hands, because like I said, this deck is super fun to be able to play around with, and we're just going to see what we can do, because this deck used to be a brick city, and hopefully it's not anymore, and I kind of want to show you guys that it isn't as bad as it used to be as a brick city because we have all those consistency cards now. So we're going to go ahead and draw for turn into a copy of Majesty's Fiend, which is really good because he has Monarch stats, a copy of Erebus, which is really good, Ether or Ida, a copy of Tenacity, and a copy of the new Upstart Goblin. So this card is kind of cool. What it does is basically you have no cards in, or if you have no cards in your extra deck except this card, you can destroy this card to draw a card, which is kind of cool. So we're going to go ahead and right off the bat, I use Tenacity to be able to reveal either one of these in my hand to be able to grab from my deck to my hand a copy of a Monarch spell or trap. Now, unfortunately, I don't have another Monarch spell or trap, so Pantheism is not the best target for this. You're actually going to grab something like a copy of Domain, or you're going to grab a copy of, say, Return. Domain is probably going to be your best bet in this particular scenario, or a copy of Stormforth to tribute your opponent's monsters. It's kind of up to you. We don't play Eruption anymore because Erupt is just not quite as good. I would probably just grab the copy of Domain, and you actually don't even have to use the Upstart effect this turn. You can actually save it because we have such a good consistent hand, which is kind of cool. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck really quick, and then once we shuffle up the deck, we're then going to normal summon out the copy of the Ida, and then Ida's effect is going to go off to special summon out our copy of our Underworld Squire, and the Underworld Squire is going to give us an additional normal summon, which is going to help us out a lot. And then you can just special summon, or you can activate the copy of your Domain. Domain is going to help you out a lot because Domain is just going to kind of lock your opponent down where they can't special summon monsters from the extra deck. And if you really want to be safe with this particular field, you can then just tribute the copy of the Ida to be able to normal summon out the copy of the Majesty's Fiend, and then you can basically just pass against your opponent because this says they can't special summon from the extra deck, and this says they can't activate monster effects. So you're basically really shutting them down in a complete way where they can't special summon anything from extra and they can't like activate monster effects. So it's just really good. Like, it's just really good to be able to set up a field like this because they are not going to be able to do all that much against you unless they can normal summon out something that's bigger than 2400 or special summon something out with a spell or trap that's bigger than 2400. It's going to be really hard to out the Majesty's Fiend and the copy of Domain because they can't touch the extra deck, and unless they have something that's in the main deck that's bigger than that, like you're playing against Eldridge, you're going to have a really tough time dealing with a field like this. So if you go into next turn, you're going to draw into a Pantheism, which is pretty good. And then you can activate your copy of your spell card. It is considered a spell when it's down here, so you can, if you want to, you can activate it here, or you can just throw it here and just let it sit. And then you can reveal in your hand the copy of the Erebus to be able to tribute it, summon it out for as a level 6, which is kind of cool, just to get you an additional monster. Its effect won't be able to activate, unfortunately, because of the Majesty's Fan, but it can still kind of go off where you're having a 2800 beat stick on the field, so you can then swing for 24 and then swing for 28. And then you pass turn, and it kind of slows the game down again. You can then use the copy of the Pantheism during the next turn to send both of these to the graveyard to draw 2 additional cards, which is going to get you a copy of Tenacity and Return, which is going to help you out a lot. And then you also have the copy of your Pantheism that lets you banish this card from the graveyard to reveal 3 Monarch spells or traps, and add 1 of them random from your deck to your hand, which is going to be really helpful. You can reveal 3 of the same, like 3 Stormforths if you want to. It's kind of totally up to you. It doesn't super matter which ones at this point you grab. We do have 3 copies of Stormforth in the deck, so you can just add something like that because you've already got Tenacity and you've already got Return. So you have the 3 Stormforths, so you can just reveal all 3 Stormforths and just grab one because they can't pick anything but a Stormforth. So having this on the field is going to be really nice. You don't have another Tribute Summon, but it's fine. If you didn't activate this, you could actually use the Stormforth to Tribute Summon this monster out as well. It is a level 5 to be able to Tribute Summon it out to your side of the field because you can tribute an opponent's monster to summon it during that turn, which is kind of cool. Because you've only really normal summoned during the 1st, 3rd, and then 5th turn, which is kind of cool. So you have all these really good monsters on the field, and you just got rid of an opponent's monster, and you just kind of swing. So it kind of simplifies what Yu-Gi-Oh does, which is kind of neat in this particular scenario. So let's go ahead and go into the next one. As you guys can see, the deck is not, again, it's not super bricky anymore. Like, it's still bricky, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Like, it's still really good in what it can do, which is what's really cool, and it kind of sticks true to the domain lock, which is kind of neat. The only downside is you have to use stuff like Vanity's Fiend a little bit more than actually using stuff like the domain, because if you put that Upstart Goblin in the extra deck, it does kind of turn it off, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that's why we don't play Eruption anymore, or the Monarchs Erupt anymore in this deck, because it does kind of turn it off. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. So we're going to draw into Majesty Fiend again. I only play one of it. Ida again, a copy of another Ida, a copy of Return, and a copy of Ether this time. So we're going to normal summon the copy of the Ida. We're going to activate its effect and be able to special summon out a copy of our Squire from the deck. And then once we summon out the copy of the Squire from the deck, we're then going to be able to tribute summon out a copy of the Ether. But before you do, you're going to activate the copy of the Return, and then you're going to tribute out both of these monsters to be able to then tribute summon out this. This will be Chainlink 1, this will be Chainlink 2. To be able to add from deck to hand, you're going to add from deck to hand a copy of, say, Karaz from the deck to the hand, because you have to add the opposite one. And then you use the copy of the Ether, which you guys are unfamiliar with what this card does. When it's tribute summon, if this card is tribute summon, you can send 2 Monarch spells or traps from your deck to the graveyard. And then once you use special summon from your deck to your side of the field, a 2400 attack and 1000 defense from your deck, and will return it to your hand during the end phase. It has had 2400 more attack and 1000 defense. So you're going to special summon out your other copy of your monster. So we're going to just go ahead and send from the deck to the graveyard, say, a copy of Pantheism, and maybe something like a Stormforth, because you're not going to super need all the Stormforths in the deck. So we're just going to go ahead and send the copy of Stormforth to the graveyard, because it's just going to be really important to kind of get those cards to the graveyard. You can send, like, you have to send like 2 Monarch spells or traps with different names, which is the only unfortunate thing, because I would definitely send double Pantheism if I could. And then once we send these to the graveyard, you're then going to special summon out a copy of Erebus. I like to special summon Erebus because I like to have the Erebus in hand. And then once these go to the graveyard, you can then activate the copy of the Pantheism to banish itself, to be able to reveal 3 Tenacities in the hand, which you have 3 Tenacity in the deck, which I'll just show you guys. You play 1, 2, and then you reveal the 3rd one right here. You reveal all 3 Tenacities, and your opponent is forced to pick the Tenacity. You then activate the copy of Tenacity to reveal the Karaz that they already know is there, and then you activate the copy of the Tenacity to be able to add from deck to hand Domain, and then you activate Domain, and now they can't special summon from extra deck at all. And then when you normal summon next turn your Majesty's Fiend, you can then just tribute for 1 monster, which is kind of neat. So that's pretty much the gist of the way that a first turn play would go. And again, you usually do want to go first. Now, you did establish both your big monarchs, which is really cool, and you're just going to add this back to hand during end phase to get you more advantage. When you pass the turn you're against your opponent, you do control the only tribute summon monster on the field. So they're not going to be a special summon from extra deck, which is really cool because this has the ability that when you have no cards in your extra deck and you're the only monster that controls a tribute summon monster, your opponent cannot special summon from the extra deck at all. And this card is a 2800 beat stick, which is really good. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw for turn, and we're going to draw into a copy of Pantheism. The Pantheism is not going to come in super handy in this particular scenario because you don't really have anything that you can summon. So we're just going to summon out our copy, or send to the graveyard off of it. So we're going to summon out our copy of Ida, the Heavenly Squire. Then we're going to use the copy of the Ida to be able to special summon out the copy of the Underworld Squire. And both of these monsters actually have some unique effects, which is pretty cool as well. At the time, we didn't have anything banished, but you do have the ability that if this card is sent to the graveyard, then you can target one of your banished Monarch spells and traps and add it back to your hand. Or if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it to be able to special summon from the deck a copy of a monster that has 800 attack and 1000 defense. So keep that in mind as you're playing the deck, that these cards actually get you cards from the deck as well, and from banish, which is kind of neat. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to reveal this in our hand to our opponent, the copy of the Erebus. And you can just go ahead and normal summon the Erebus to shuffle stuff back, which is what I usually do. Tribute out your copy of your Ida, and then your Ida will actually grab back your copy of your Pantheism because you banished this card from your graveyard to be able to activate it. And then you're going to grab back your Pantheism to be able to Pantheism for a Pantheism, which is going to be really nice to get you a draw too. But before you do that, don't forget about the effect of your Erebus, because this went Chainlink 2 and this went Chainlink 1 to send 2 more Monarch spells or traps from the deck to the graveyard to be able to shuffle the card back. So I already have the return, so I'm going to send return this time, or you can send the Prime Monarch instead. Prime Monarch is probably better than sending the Stormforth that I did before, because it's going to get you an additional monster. You didn't super need it, but you do it does kind of help because it can banish cards from the graveyard. So probably send the copy of your Prime and your Pantheism usually instead of Stormforth or anything like that. You usually want to get a Prime to the graveyard so you can always have a monster that you can bring out. So these are going to touch the graveyard, and as soon as these touch the graveyard, you're then going to get to use your copy of your Erebus effect to be able to shuffle 1 card from your opponent's hand at random, graveyard, or their side of the field into the deck, which is pretty good. It's non-targeting shuffling, which is pretty cool. You then can use your Pantheism for your Pantheism to be able to draw 2. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle the deck just to make sure it's good and randomized. And then we're going to draw a copy of Erebus and another Erebus, which that was kind of not randomized at all. And we forgot to activate our copy of our Monarch's Return, but we already kind of have both the targets in our hand. So that's really important to keep in mind because we only play the 2 monsters with 2400 attack. You can't add Vanity's Fiend, which is why I didn't activate that, but I did kind of want to bring that up to you guys. These are your only 2 targets to search off of these 2, and then these 2 you can search these 2 off of, which is kind of neat, because those are the only high-level ones that you play in the entire build. So you're going to grab off the copies of your Erebuses from your deck to your hand. Now, it does look like pretty much all you're going to be able to do, but you also have the copy of the Pantheism in the graveyard that you can then banish to reveal 3 Monarch spells or traps, which can be a copy of, say, 2 Tenacities and another card that you want, like a copy of your March of the Monarchs. And we're actually going to have to shuffle dice for this. So let's go ahead and see what we actually grab. So you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to go ahead and just drop the dice. It's actually right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to grab Tenacity. As long as we get Tenacity or the card that you want, it's not a super big deal. So we're going to grab that copy of Tenacity, reveal one of these, and then grab the copy of March, because that's what we wanted to begin with, was the copy of the March of the Monarchs, because March is going to get you more protection. So you're then going to activate the copy of March, and March is going to prevent your monsters from being able to be destroyed by card effects, which is pretty good just to be able to get you that monster being able to not be destroyed by card effects, and then domains locking them out of the extract. You have 2 2800 beat sticks that when they attack, they go to 36, which is pretty good. And you pretty much have established this really, really good board with all this card economy. As you guys can see, the deck does pop off. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for another one. But the only problem is I have all my normal summons in my hand, which is a little bit bad, but that's okay, because we've gone through all these Pantheisms, and every single turn, you can just keep banishing Pantheisms. Now, the draw 2 effect is not once per turn, but the banishing effect is once per turn. But essentially, if you always have Tenacities in deck, you're always going to be able to draw, or you're going to be able to grab anything that you want anyways. So it's not that big of a deal. But I will say, I would always send from deck to graveyard a copy off your copy of your Ether or your Erebus, I would always send Prime. I didn't in the first one because it didn't super matter, but I would always send Prime, and I would send a copy of Pantheism off of it because you can use these together. You can actually banish this to get you a search with the Tenacity, and then activate the Tenacity just by revealing a monster. The Tenacity will go to hand, and then you can banish this card from the graveyard to then revive this, and it will actually search your copy of Domain. So those four kind of work really well together, which is kind of neat. And if you ever draw these two together, it's actually not terrible because then you can just ditch them both together and then draw two and then do the same thing that I just did as well, which is kind of neat. So you have all those really good plays with the Monarch spells and traps. All the cards in this deck interact well together. Especially the only one that kind of doesn't is Vanity's Fiend. And Vanity's Fiend's kind of like the oddball. He has 1200 defense, so you can't search him with anything. But he's so good that you have to play him at 3. So let's go ahead and shuffle the deck up and see what we can do for another test hand. So we're going to go ahead and draw for turn, which, hey, we talked about him, and there he is. We draw in a copy of Karaz, a copy of our Duelist, a copy of Erebus, and a copy of Ida. So we're going to go ahead and normal summon out the copy of Ida to then be able to special summon from the deck our copy of our other monster. If you want to play it safe, you can do this instead. If you really want to play it safe, you can just go, hey, normal summon, effect to give me the additional normal summon, and then tribute out your copy of Vanities, and then go. I mean, it can be that simple. It doesn't have to be all those crazy plays that I did before. You can just go normal, effect, or normal summon, and then pass. That's it. Where you essentially just lock your opponent out of special summoning for the whole rest of the duel, as long as this card is on the field, which is really good. So then we're going to draw for turn, and we're going to draw into a copy of Proof. Now, Proof is kind of good, but if you already control the Vanities, it's not, because these two cards kind of combo together, because you can then special summon this card if you have no monsters that are currently special summoned, and it gives you an additional tribute summon. So if you do draw into this instead of the Duelist, you can reveal this card, special summon it, and then immediately tribute summon out the copy of Vanity's Fiend, which these two work so well together, which is really cool. So you have all those really, really good plays that you're able to pop off with your copy of Vanity's Fiend. Now, again, you won't have anything else, but you have Vanity's Fiend. So we're going to draw again. You don't have anything. You draw again. Nothing. You draw again. And now you have a Stormforth. You can then use the Stormforth and give another Vanity's Fiend on the field, so your opponent's going to have a really tough time. Let's keep drawing. We draw into a Pantheism. Can't do anything with it. A copy of Domain. You can discard these two together to be able to draw 2, which is going to be kind of cool. And then you can also banish the Pantheism and the graveyard to add a Tenacity from deck to hand. But how far do we have to go to get to that point? That's where the deck bricks a little bit, is when you draw nothing but monsters and you don't draw your extenders, which all of your spells and traps are essentially extenders for the deck. So let's go ahead and do one last test hand and see what we can pull off. And we can just establish maybe a Domain lock or a Vanities will be good. I think that'll actually kind of show the deck. It did still pull off. Like every hand I've had something to do, every single hand. Like you haven't had a bad hand at all. Erebus, you had drawn to an Ether. Is this the first one? Proof. Proof is fine. Another Proof, and a copy of 1 for 1. Now, you might look at this hand and go, oh, that's bad. But it's not. You actually can use Proof and your copy of 1 for 1 to discard both of these, and then you go into your copy of your Ida. Ida is going to get you out a monster on your side of the field, or the Heavenly Squire is going to throw that out on the field. Her effect is going to go off, which is going to get you the Underworld Squire, and then you're going to shuffle the deck. And then you can just normal summon out your copy of your Ether. Ether's effects will go off, and you'll send what? Pantheism and a copy of the first Monarch, which is going to be helpful. You're going to send both of these, and then banish your copy of your Pantheism to reveal 3 Tenacities in the deck, which we've already kind of established we have 3. Reveal your copy of your Erebus in your hand for the Tenacity, and then once you reveal the copy of the Erebus for Tenacity, you're then going to grab from deck to hand your copy. Oh, I totally forgot to use her effect to be able to actually special summon from deck. So you're actually going to get him to offer effect. My mistake. You're then going to add your copy of your Domain, and then you're going to actually activate the Domain, and then you've established the lock. So you've established Domain lock. Don't forget to special summon off her effect. I totally just did that, and that was really funny and really bad. Don't do that. That's bad. But you do get this really cool field where you get your 2 light and dark monsters on your side of the field, which is kind of neat. Something I've thought about throwing into the extra deck is a Blackluster Soldier. I know that's kind of weird, but you kind of establish light and dark monsters in the graveyard really easily, and I could have thrown out like I've got a dark here, and I've got a dark and a dark here. So you have all these really like good cards that are going to just get you all sorts of different advantages, which is what's really cool about the deck. But I think that pretty much explains the deck to the max. You're going to get all these different plays. That was actually cool, drawing those back to back after I've already summoned those. Definitely give me a like for that one. That was cool. So let's go ahead and call this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. Definitely tell me what you think of this video down in the comments down below, because this deck is super fun to be able to play with. Like I said, this deck is really an amazing deck. It's very budget. It's very fun. It's very easy to pick up, and it's a super fun deck, especially if you're trying to teach somebody to play. Like I said, you can do those insane combos that I did, or you can do something as simple as this. All you have to do is reveal this in your hand, special summon it, and then tribute out the Vanity's Fiend and pass. It can be that simple to play this game, which is what's really cool. I would highly recommend this deck for a beginner. I would highly recommend this for an advanced player. I would recommend this for regionals. I would recommend it for locals. It's a really fun deck. I think this is going to be one of the best builds, I dare say, for Monarchs currently. So if you want to check out the deck profile down in the description below, maybe there's a secret deck I don't know about, and there's something else that I'm just kind of missing. So if there is, there's always new ideas for decks, so definitely check out a lot of what's going on with Monarchs, because there is always going to be cool plays with this deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of notifications squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.